in the live shows. It's amazing to be back with you all as well tonight. So look, amazing. I'm on time as well, and I am back. So absolutely amazing to be here. So the first thing, as I always do say, is look, get into this amazing community, get into this chat. This is the best chat on this platform, hands down. Look, be respectful to yourselves, be respectful to the community, be respectful to me. Otherwise, the bad hammer comes out. We don't like doing it, but we absolutely will. Look, right now is a very, very frustrating time. I know people are frustrated with me and my opinions. I get frustrated as well. But look, opinions are the spice of life, and we're not always going to agree. So look, get in there with your chat. Second thing to say is that I'm not a dictator of this chat. I really do read out your comments, just because I do respect your comments. Look, we don't always have to agree. Dino is in the house, absolute legend. I'm feeling better. I'm feeling fighting fit, back on form, and ready to hit this tonight. I've been looking forward to doing this show for quite some time. I've been wanting to do this financial show for quite some time. And Dino, mate, I hope you're doing extremely well. And look, apologies, guys, again. Wasn't great, but now I'm back in full voice, and we're going to get into it. There is quite a bit to unpack tonight. And look, forgive me tonight if I teach you to suck eggs tonight. I know you guys are intelligent. I know you guys are smart. I'm just going to go through it. So look, last week I saw some stuff, and look, I think it's really worth going through this stuff. And look, the headline that I've put in there genuinely isn't clickbait. Liam says hi Liam. I want to go through that. I will explain the numbers as I always do. I'll give you context. I'll give you the good and the bad as well. I did see a video on how we're going to spend £340 million and how we can spend anything that we like. A lot of bullshit. That is not going to happen. That can't happen. Well, there is a scenario where that could happen, and we can talk about that. So what have I done? So look, I've been away this afternoon. I've gone away and I've built a model. And when I say that, I don't mean I've gone and built like a woman. I've basically gone and built a model that basically we can plug into. You can, and tonight we can make this an interactive show. I've got the model there. I'll explain it to you. And this will tell you basically via the scenarios what we can spend. So I've plugged in straight away what I think is a fair assumption, and then we'll talk about how we then are able to fund the summer rebuild. Have you congratulated Goldbridge yet? On what? On what am I congratulating him on? JB has been watching Weird Science. I love that film. I'd love to know what I've got to congratulate him on. Let me know. And if I need to congratulate him on anything, then I will do. The Baller League team, whatever. Look, I don't care. It's nothing to do with me. The Baller League is nothing to do with me. I really couldn't care less. So look, you're a United fan. Look, I think the United top and the United shirt behind me will dictate that I'm a United fan. So look, just say well done, Brent. look, Goldbridge. Look, Goldbridge is his own man. He doesn't need me. He doesn't need me. Look, I don't understand why I even need to say anything at all to Goldbridge, because it's got nothing to do with me. He's his own man. He's got his own success. He doesn't need me to say anything. I love you. You are so funny. I love it. I do. I love the banter. I do. I love it. You are quality. Brilliant. So look, let's get into it tonight. So where do we start? I love it. 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 So look, let's get into the figures tonight. So look, I'm gonna go through the figures. I better have them here. And I'll go through the figures. For fuck's sake. Yes, I will go through the figures, and I will tell you exactly what that money comprises of, and I'll tell you what we can do about it. I tell you how we can fund a window. So look, let's get on to the debt. So why am I saying tonight that we've got £780 million worth of debt? I will tell you what the debt is. I'll tell you what the debt means. Well done, Brent, and your continued success. Body fan, you crack me up. I love it. I really, really do. So look, £780 million. Now, where does that come from? So look, let's talk about this. So look, the first instance, the figures are we can only afford a Fredo, and even that we need to lend the money. And basically we do. So look, where does this figure come from? So I've seen over the last couple of days, I've seen there's two figures bandied around. There's like we owe £400 million and it's due within a year. Well, the actual figure that is due within a year of 780 million. So where do these numbers come from? So look, long-term debt. So we owe £295 million in long-term debt. Now look, this comes from the balance sheet, right? Now the first thing to say here is when we're talking about spend and we're talking about our ability to buy players, debt doesn't impact that. As hard as it is to believe, debt doesn't impact what we can spend. That is the beauty of debt. That is why billionaires use debt to fund their lifestyle, because they can pay it back. You don't pay tax on debt. The problem with debt is that at some point it needs to be paid off. So that is the problem. You can load yourself with debt. If you for example, hello senior JB comment. I love it. Tonight we are back to English tonight. So the first thing to say on this is that for those of you, and look, I know you guys are smart. For those of you, transfer debt JB is like the last three or four seasons of transfer debt. Is it like for the last three or four seasons, or son, or are we going to pay it off? So basically, let's get on to the long-term debt. And in fact, this is not even the transfer debt. So in a sense, if you think about it in terms of the transfers, right, we owe that money. So let's just say, Dino, you're right. Let's just say we signed a bunch of players 4 years ago. The element of that is due now. So let's just say, we're going to have to pay this year of we are Derby Super Rams. Luke Green is a legend. So of the transfer debt, about 160 million pounds of that is due. And, next year, another chunk will be due. So what that means is that, those players that we signed for Ten Hag, and maybe some of the players before that as well, the money is now due on those players. 160 million of that is due now. So those are the players from the last 3 or 4 seasons. And again, that doesn't include the elements for last year. For next year, we're going to have to pay that as well. But that is the tip of the iceberg. Sky says hi. So look, we will get through to that. I'm not even talking about the transfer debt here. So there's long-term debt. This is due within a year, 295.7. So basically, this is constructs of scheduled amortization under the credit facility. Henderson is in the house, absolute legendary. So this is amortization. So this is the scheduled amortization under the credit facility. So the credit facility needs to be paid. And what we're talking about here is that the credit facility needs to be paid within a year. Thank you. Oh, I love it. So look, that is the scheduled amortization of the credit facility needs to be paid. Now look, historically, JB, would you sign Big Pat from us, rising star from America? Possibly. How much roughly will we have to spend in the summer? Sky, I promise you, I will get to that point. I'm going to go through the facts and figures, and I promise you, I will get to that. What happens if it's not paid in time? So, well, basically, if it's not paid in time, then we default, and they can come and collect our stuff. Now, look, I will go through why that won't happen. I am going to go through this debt. It needs to be paid in a year, and I will look. I'm going to go through the fair point as I always do. So the 295 is, as we said, the credit facility. There is a debt reclassification from long-term to current. So what that means is obviously the previous debt, the element of debt that's gone from a long-term debt to a current liability. So current liabilities basically mean that it's owed. So what we've had is so for example, a loan, let's just say you get a loan from a bank, that is technically a long-term liability, right? And you can pay that back. So that's not technically due. Now, the problem is sometimes, look, I have seen Goldbridge cover the debt and it's shit. Goldbridge doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Okay. I am going to go through this in depth. I'm going to go through this. I'm gonna give you the stuff that Goldbridge doesn't have a fucking clue about. So there you go. So reclassification of long-term debt. And we have short-term debt of £160 million. So when you combine the credit facility, when you combine the reclassification of long-term debt, and then you've got the short-term debt of 160, so you've got your amortization, credit facilities, and debt reclassification. That's 295. That's 295. Now, we're going to now get into the short-term debt. So this is debt that has to be paid. Now, in this as well, so there are two elements to the credit facility. There is the amortization part, and there is the actual credit facility itself. The credit facility, there is due. There's an element due of that. So of the short-term loans, of the short-term debt, 160 of that is credit facility, and there's a short-term bridging loan. So what the bridging loan is basically when you need to take a loan on a short-term basis. So let's just say you don't have enough cash to pay for something. You take out a bridging loan. So it's basically like going to a payday lender, effectively. So United have had to go and get a bridging loan for something. I don't know the details of that. And the interesting thing about this debt is that you're not going to find out what the debt is, because they don't have to publish the debt. Are there high interest rates? Well, the bridging loan is. Now, I've purposefully not gone too much into the interest rate as such, but I will tell you what I think will happen. And obviously there's an overdraft as well. So we've got two aspects already. We've got the long-term debt of 295, that was the long-term debt, short-term debt that needs to be paid. There's also something called accounts payable. Now, if anybody worked in accounting, anybody knows that sort of stuff. Your accounts payable is basically anybody that you owe cash to. Okay, so you've got your long-term debts. Fucking hell. There you go, twat. So you've got your AP. Now, your AP is a liability. So what that again means is that's something that you owe. So in this accounts payable aspect, you've got your installments. You've got your transfer installments. So this is not the same as credit facility. Your credit facility is something else. So we've got transfer installments, we've got supplier payments that we need to pay, and this is stadium operations, travel, security, commercial stuff as well. We've got operational invoices as well for retail, training, logistics, and we've got accrued expenses that we need to pay on the match day, like for example, like the police and that sort of stuff. So the combination of all of those, Nikarutsu is in the house just for the last. We are basically robbing Peter to feed Paul. Exactly that. So look, this 780 is real. This 780 is not a bluff. This 780, as it stands, has to be paid within a year. So to quickly go back over that, that is the long-term debt, and we're talking about amortization on the credit facility. We're talking about the reclassification of a type of debt. We're talking about the credit facility itself. We're talking about a bridging loan, an overdraft. We're then talking about the installments that we need to pay, and then we're talking about invoices to run the football club. Now that's £780 million that is due. Now that sounds ridiculously scary. Right? Absolutely crazy. Now how you know that's true is because if you look at the money that we owe is £1.3 billion, right? If you look at the amount of money that the Glazers owe and combine with this, it roughly comes to 1.3. Now, how the fuck do we sort this out? Now, what is going to happen? So look, the debt is going to be restructured. It is as simple as that. Look, United cannot afford to pay £780 million out. Now, look, it is common. It is common for clubs to carry, like it is common for people to carry the debt. The problem with carrying the debt is it's still going to be there. Now, look, will United look to pay some of the debt off? And the answer is going to be yes, but they can't pay off £780 million. And then we will get on to, look, if you get on to the profit, JB, what other club is carrying that sort of debt? Clubs will carry debt, but no club will carry that amount of debt, to be fair. Clubs will carry debt, right? For example, they will carry 100 million of debt. Or Liverpool, for example, they spent £500 million. They will carry some of that debt. But again, you're right. We're going to carry this debt. Now, the problem is and we've not even gone over how we even fund this yet, by the way. So what would normally happen is that if you've got a credit card, right? And for example, I've got a credit card. I'll do all my spending on my credit card because you're covered, right? And I pay back. Problems come when you don't pay the credit card back. The problem that we've got, and this is and this is the major issue that we've got. If you can service the debt, that's fine. But if you can't pay off the debt, that is the problem. And the problem is we don't have cash to pay off of the debt. At the moment, profit for this year is floating around minus 2.5 million. And look, it is down. It is down, but I think that we will turn that around. But there's still not going to be enough profit to cover and pay and bring the debt down. Uzi says hi, hello, and look, even if, let's just say we actually went and paid 200, we're still then going to need to reuse the credit card to buy players. So in terms of this debt, this is why Champions League is so important. But look, it is not all doom and gloom, because United will restructure the debt. They've got to. There are commitments. There is some of this debt that they're going to have to pay. They are going to have to pay a chunk of this off, because imagine a scenario. Now, I've seen somebody say this, that we've got a credit facility of 200, and I think it's 400 now, right? I've seen another creator talk about this, and I'm stunned that we can just use that. We can just max out the credit card. We can max out the credit card. If we max out the credit card and we take on another 200 million pounds, it's debt. It's debt. The debt goes up to 2.32. You know, the debt increases. So how are we going to fund this window? So look, that is the scale of the debt. I'll go through the chat and then I'll tell you how we will have to keep the debt, but how we can still buy players. So that is the debt. That is the 780 million pound debt. I'll go through the chats and then we can talk about the actual spend, what happens, the income, and that sort of stuff as well. So let's go through the chats. Let's have a little look. Let's go for this. It will be sell to buy. We are potless, says Dino. No Tonali then. Grow up, you 12. Dino, but the fans are spending 300 plus on new players. Look, this whole talk of spending 340 million pound on players is total bollocks. It's total and utter shite. You know, look, one of the things I want to say, I will do a scenario where we can spend that amount of money, right? But just because in a scenario you can, doesn't mean you should do. Because one of the things to say here, there are two things to say on this, is that the biggest contributing factor to how we won't be able to spend money are the wages. If you go out, as some of the creators are suggesting, and you walk out and you go, let's go spend 340 million quid on players because you can, fucking legends, oh, we're gonna fucking spend it because yeah, we can buy. The moment you put those wages onto the books, it brings it down. And I'll give you the scenarios when we look at those, as to if you go and spend 340 million pound on players and you buy 3 or 4 players and your wages increase, because we don't have a lot of gap. If you do that, we're screwed. So that is the number one reason why we cannot just go out and spend all of this money on players. And we will try to keep the costs low. And that is how I know, that is how you guys should know that we're not going to spend the money this year, because what are we going to buy it with? And we're not going to be able to track the players because we're not going to spend the wages. Let's go through these. Are they high interest rates? The bridging loan is. Go through these. I can't get a shout out. Benga says I can't get a shout out. Yes, buddy. Look, I was just chatting, and then I will, my friend. Liam says, such a shame this is how this has been allowed to happen at our club. Aren't we all robbing Peter to pay for? He loves his bins, says Dino. I do love his bins, his boys. Good evening, Nikarutsu. Bailiff's going to be knocking at the door. The club is far bigger an institution to go bust. Poor Peter has been robbed. Would the financial regulator charge United? No, because United are operating under IFRS. United are operating with IAS and the International Financial Reporting Standards. The regulator is they're not doing anything wrong. United can load up debt. There is nothing that anybody can do in regards to debt, as long as the financial instruments that United follow for the debt are legally fine. Then there's nothing that they can do. Get another investor. It's true. Casper 7, isn't Jim Ratcliffe a billionaire? I'm sure the interest United's paying is ridiculous, and the creditors are only too happy to stay. But United's debt level is a joke. It's true. Messi or CR7, it's really easy, Ben. For me, Cristiano is the epitome of hard work. Messi is a gift. His credit card's going to bounce. Must be right IOUs. He puts his United stand, and that's football subscriptions on the credit card. One thing that pisses me off, says Sky, is the price of the tickets, and then stuff at the stadium when you go to a match. I get the train is $350. It's ridiculous, Sky. Liam says, imagine are probably the only club in the world who can shoulder this much debt and stay afloat. I think the next cost cutting will be brought by Jim. His players bringing their own packed lunch. Doesn't the books from the previous season carry over, and we've been in debt a long time? So, Lucky, what happens in regards to the debt? So, effectively, we can carry over a certain amount of loss. So basically, every single financial year, your books reset. You still have that loss from the previous year, but that's an accumulated loss every single year. So let's just say you make a loss from year 1, year 2. Those losses are not carried into the current year. So let's just say you made £10 million loss in the first year. Second year, you made a £50 million loss. And then in year 3, you made 200 million. Over a 3-year, you can say, you've made X amount of money, but the books don't carry over beyond the financial year. So whatever we've done this year, we're still carrying the £53 million of debt. That still hasn't gone anywhere at all. That loss is still there and just been added onto the books. But this year is a completely new year. So that debt from the previous year doesn't technically carry over into the new year, but you would have to look at it over 3 years. But have no doubt that debt goes on to the club. How much is the average ticket at United? Exactly. They aren't allowed any fizzy drinks. they'll be taking their own strip home to wash. I think. Do you think we're ready for the Champions League? Says Alex. No, I don't, Alex. No, I don't. I think we are. I think we are probably a good 5 or 6 players short. I think I think we've got a good core squad. But I don't think we're ready for the Champions League. Look, I want to go further into the Champions League, and the figures that I will go over in terms of the budget and what we can spend, I don't think we're ready, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether or not we're going to be able to bring in the players that we need. You can't put all your eggs in one basket, John. You can't afford an egg or a basket. Oh, you're cracking me up tonight. I had to. If you only had a couple of billionaires, we may need to go back to trading days of offering livestock and possibly a family member. Beef says Carrick wants to go assist Arteta next season and learn from him. Apparently, I don't think he does. I think what you find. I think Carrick has already schooled Arteta. So I think Carrick is, or why does Carrick the master need to go and learn from the apprentice? Brace yourselves for a summer. Already can imagine the waffle the club will release to distract the fans, and we're signing Jimmy Smith. And look, I want to call this out as well tonight. I've seen again channels talking about Cole Palmer. Just go and get Cole Palmer. Fuck off! Like talking utter shit. You cannot just go and get a Cole Palmer. Like, what a bag of shit. It is just fucking nonsense. It is nonsense by creators, by the biggest channels who don't know shit. They don't know the figures. They just read a headline figure and they don't know what the debt is. They don't know. Nicarucci says, if any United's this much debt, how are we going to sign any players in the summer? It's been added to already crazy debt. And I will go into it. I promise you I will go into it as well, because I'll tell you how we can get to those figures, but I don't know how we're going to pay for it. I say anyone who they can make a decent profit on, G's can go on the cop for under 50. Liam says Carrick wants to take Arteta to be a set piece coach. I love it. Cole Palmer isn't that good. I would rather take my chances in Kane. Cole Palmer is only available to a handful of teams. His fee would be 100. But ironically, it's not the fee. It's actually not the fee that would do the damage. It is not the fee. It is the wages. It is the wages. Okay, the fee will be added on to the debt, but there's this misconception that it's the transfer fee. Yes, the transfer fee does come into it, but it's the wages that are going to absolutely piss us over. Andrew says, hi there, my friend. Andrew, legend. Do you think United will win against Newcastle Wednesday night, my friend? It's difficult to say. If I was a betting man, I think United will be up for the game. I think United can win. Do I think they will win? Again, I think it's going to be a very, very close game. I do. Newcastle are a very, very good team. At times, they're also abysmal. I think, for me, Andrew, I think it depends on which Newcastle turn up. I think we can just about win. Injuries worry me, though. Injuries are a concern to me. One other thing that's a concern for me right now is the form. And look, I'm not talking about, that we've got 6 wins. It's brilliant. Our form on paper is great. The actual performance and how we come out of the blocks is probably the biggest issue for me. So I think that we can win. Am I confident of a win? No, but I think the way that Newcastle are playing as of now, I know they lost the previous game. I think that we can. I think that we can win. So I'm going to predict. Am I going to predict the win? I don't know. I think it's going to be a very, very close game. I don't know, mate. I really, really don't know. I really, really just don't know. I think that we can win if we start like we started against Palace. I think we're going to be in trouble. But I think we will just about win. I do. Beef says Bruno is nowhere near Rice. These conversations need to stop. Bruno is the disgrace of a captain. Now, look, I've had my piece on Bruno Fernandes. Look, Bruno Fernandes is a fantastic player. He's probably our best player. Is Bruno Fernandes world class? No. I can't get on board that train, and I'm not going to. Bruno Fernandes does world class things. He changes the game. Crystal Palace. If Bruno doesn't play, I don't think that we win. But he's not consistent enough. But look, Bruno Fernandes. Look, I guarantee you this, Beef. I guarantee you this. I guarantee you this. I guarantee you this. If Bruno Fernandes has a shocking game in the next game, guarantee you the same people that are going to call him world class. But Grace says we're going to spend 200 million this summer. Grace, I'm gonna give you the figures. I'm going to give you the stats, and you can tell me. I'm going to give you the stats. We're going to go through the model. I've created a model based on facts and figures, and I will tell you how we can spend that money. But Grace, my question to you is this: we can spend that money on paper. We can. How are we going to pay for it? Tiny going to Arsenal. It's the package, transfer fee signing on, the bonus wage, and the agent fees on top. Exactly. I think United will win 2-0, says Andrew. I think Newcastle will be a really tough test. The Geordies would love to throw a spanner in the works. I do agree with you. John, what was your take on the Goldbridge opinion on the red card and penalty against Palace? I don't know. I don't know. If you can tell me the opinion, I'll give you my opinion on it. But I don't know the opinion. I literally don't watch Goldbridge. So if you can tell me the opinion, I'll give you my opinion on it. And guys, just to say, just because I'm going through the figures tonight doesn't mean to say that look, this is still your show tonight. So you ask questions, we can still talk about stuff. I'm just going to go through some of the financial stuff. Ben G says, good evening, guys. I will take Morgan Rogers over Palmer. Rogers is a very technically gifted player, and his wage demand would be on the high side, 100 to 150. I believe. And look, Ben, I happen to agree with you. I think Cole Palmer would be an expensive mistake. I do. I think he's a talented player. But I think the problem with Cole Palmer, for me, is this. You are saying that we are going to spend this money on this player, and whatever happens, we're not going to recoup any of that cash back. Now, look, I'm not saying that we should be buying players. I don't agree necessarily that we should be buying players to resell. We should be buying a big chunk of players for that, but you have to have players in the squad that are going to be players that are going to stay, and you're not going to get cash back for them, right? Cole Palmer, for me, I think is a very, very big risk. He'd be very, very expensive. You would have to amortize him over 5 years. There's just something about Cole Palmer for me. I On his day, again, I think on his day, he's a very, very. Cole Palmer reminds me of Bruno Fernandes at the moment. Cole Palmer on his day is a world beater, fantastic player, but he's not like it all of the time. So I think for me, if you could get Cole Palmer for 60 to 80 million, of course. But Palmer's going to be 120, 130 million. It's not for me. Newcastle are a decent team. A result would be outstanding. I do agree with you. Bruno is a decent player and has been loyal to United, but is far from a captain. I've just had the positive feeling we'll win. We just have to start well. I know Newcastle doesn't keep a low block, which I don't see them doing, so expect a win. And look, Ben, I agree, actually, Ben. I think that Newcastle don't play a low block. I think it suits us. I think this is a Bruno Fernandes game. I think Bruno Fernandes will have space. Newcastle will dominate the midfield. I think we will dominate the forward line. I think it's going to be midfield defence against attack because our midfield, I'm sorry, isn't great. We could do with Kobe Mainoo having a good game. But I think this is going to be an attack against defence. I think our attack is better. But look, they've got Gordon. Now, Gordon is a fantastic player. So it's going to be an interesting game. The only one I'm concerned about is Gordon. What made and Wizard have both forgotten what a goal is. I do agree with you. He said it was a dive and they were lucky to get a red. He said it was a dive and they were lucky to get a red card too. He said it was a dive and they were lucky to get a red card too. What do I think? Look, I'm going to say this. I think Bruno Fernandes, that pass, one of those passes that is a world-class pass. Look, there's not many people who could have done that pass. I think the pass is so good that it asks questions. Do I think there was contact? Yes. Do I think there was enough contact for Cunha to go down as he did? Probably not. But he was clipped. Like, he was clipped. I don't think he dived. I think it was a very light touching. I think it was a very, very light touch. But when you get in front of your man, like he did, it was a very, very clever run from Cunha. Fantastic ball, by the way. And when you combine those two things and you're behind the player, you've got to make a decision. It was almost like there was nothing that he could do. It was almost like a game of chess. I just thought that the ball asked so many questions and Cunha's run was so good. Did it deserve the penalty? You could argue yes. Red card wise, look, when you look at it, should he have got a red card for that? By the letter of the law, you've got to give him a red card. I just thought the whole incident was a bit light. But look, Cunha got in front of his man. He had to make a decision, and it is what it is. So I just thought the situation for me was just very, very light. But look, we needed the red card, and we got it done. So look, Grace says how have we spent over 200 in the last few seasons? Every summer we have no money. We don't really sell anyone yet spend over 200. I will give you the maths. I will give you it. Because debt has nothing to do with this. but there is a way that we can do it. You're from, yeah, I don't know. I think Gibbs White would be a good signing. And he says the guy from Crystal Palace got the red card, was dragging 10 shirt to the ground. And look, as I'll say, I think there are two things at play. I thought the Bruno Fernandes pass was exemplary, and then I thought the Cunha run was just brilliant. That's what happens when you lose your man. That's what happens when you've got a forward player who is playing at the back. It wasn't a clip. It was fingers on the shoulder. And look, as I say, it was a tenuous decision. There was contact was made, and look, if I was a ref, would I've given if I'm going to take off my biased hat, which I always do, would I've given a red card and a penalty for the challenge? By the letter of the law, yes. But if this was old Premier League, no. You wouldn't give that, because it is a contact sport, and the problem is now it's not a contact sport. So within the letter of the law, the moment you put hands on a person when they're running through, anything you do, it doesn't matter if it's a fingernail, if it's breath, the moment you impede that player, you're asking questions. Do I think it was very, very light? Of course it was. Do I think Cunha dived? I think Cunha made the most of it. I think Cunha felt a tap on his shoulder and went down. Thoughts on the Palace game? Just joined. I thought that Crystal Palace played very well in the first half. I thought they were the better team. I thought United came into the game 10 minutes before the end of the first half, and then I just think the penalty was the decider. Look, I've got my wife is a Palace fan, family who are fans as well, and I thought the penalty was the deciding factor, and why the penalty was because obviously Palace went down to 10 men, and it allowed Bruno Fernandes to do his stuff. So I thought United were lackluster. I thought they were slow. They also as well towards the end of the game as well got tired and switched off. So I think on the balance, United did the business, but without the penalty, I think it would be a different story. A very soft penalty, I do agree. I think these sort of things are destroying the game. Look, I agree with you. I thought it was very, very soft. I do think we would have won the game without the red card and penalty. Sky, that's one of those questions. That's such a difficult question to answer. I think it would have been a draw. I do. But I do. The reason why I find it so difficult to answer that question is because when United are at it, they are a fantastic team. I don't know if they would have been at it enough to get the winner. I think it could have been a draw. But the one thing I will say about Carrick, and the one thing I will say about these players, that when they need to, they find a goal. But it reminded me very much of the West Ham game. So I think we possibly would have drawn, but it's so difficult to say. It's so difficult to say. The United player fell down to the ground, and Palace player tripped him. Saints J. Evening, folks. I've been crying out for Shesko to start again, and then we did, and he didn't play well. Confused me. Let's have a little look. I thought 1-1. Shesko is starting to find his feet. The biggest black mark was refusing to take the 10th penalty against Grimsby. I do agree. I told you, man, we are in a title race. We're not in a title race. Look, the thing that interests me this season is this thing that we do, right? There's this thing that we're in a title race. There's a thing that Carrick should have the contract. There's a thing that Bruno is a world-class player. There's this thing that, we're back, right? At the moment, after the season that was, and it was abysmal, why can't we just enjoy this? Like, after Bruno Fernandes, for example, being absolutely abysmal the first half of the season, he's getting better, and I'm enjoying it. Like, some of the things that he did in the Palace game, I loved it. Why can't I just enjoy that? Why can't we just enjoy the game? Why can't we just enjoy the win? Why do we need to put a label on it? Look, do I want to win the league? Of course I do. But we have to rely on Arsenal losing 4 games. Why can't we just enjoy third? And look, I've said this time and time again. I demand we win every single season, right? I demand we win the league every single season. I demand we get into the Champions League. Not because I'm stupid, because those are the standards. So I agree with you. We should be trying to win a title, but we're not in that place. And do I think, so for us to win a league, Man City and Arsenal both have to capitulate. They both have to basically just give up the league. If we were closer, where I would agree with you, if we were 4 points behind, maybe 5, you could have us as an outside bet. We're not winning the league. I think Chelsea should feel robbed for not getting the penalty against Rice. Do you think Arsenal are going to bottle it again this season? I don't think they will. I don't think they will. I just don't think they will. I think this season is so inconsistent that I think that they will win a title in a poorer league than last season. Look, if Arsenal win the league this season, look, Arsenal fans are going to be like, they are the best team in the world. And look, congratulations if they do win a league. But let's not pretend it will be a vintage year. Let's not pretend that this is a City Liverpool year. Let's not pretend that this is the Chelsea United years. Let's not pretend that these are the United and Arsenal years. They're not. This will be a very poorly, this is, for me, I liken this season to when Leicester won the league. I'm not suggesting that Arsenal are like a Leicester, but the funny thing is that Leicester in the last 22 years have won more leagues than Arsenal. So all I'm saying is, look, whether Arsenal win it or not, they have deserved it if they finish first. But let's not pretend that this is a vintage league. Let's not pretend that this is one of those seasons where this is an amazing league. Play to the law. It was a free kick. Cunha should win an Oscar for his 4 after getting touched on the shoulder. John, what football would you prefer to watch? pre-2010 or now. Today's game is a shadow of the game I fell in love with, and it was once called the beautiful game. Look, I am a child of the 90s. I've been watching football since 1987. I prefer football when it was a contact sport. I prefer the football of the 90s. I prefer a time before VAR. I prefer that time. I am a purist. I prefer football to be played. I prefer you give the attacker the benefit of the doubt. I can't stand if someone's hand is is offside. The game to me reminds me of an NFL type of game. It reminds me of that. You've got those lines in. Where is the drama? Why are we waiting for decisions for goals? Why are we waiting 10 minutes for the referee to decide something? I am I'm an old school guy. JB, somebody got to support Palace. Just glad it wasn't you. We allow people to make bad life choices. I love it. And my sister supports West Ham. Her boyfriend supports Spurs. They live in a sad household currently. Legend United, good post Turkey, Istanbul. Hello, my friend. Do you think United will go second place with 11 games to go this season? I think City are going to be. You know what, Andrew? Nothing surprises. Nothing will surprise me this season. Nothing will surprise me at all this season. I'm going to say no, because I don't think United are going to win every game. I also think they will drop points. I also think City will drop points as well. But I think that I just think we're too far behind. But look, anything's possible. I never thought that we would be third. I mean, anything's possible. I would say this. It's more possible for us to finish second than to win the league. But look, I'm happy with third. As much as it goes against the standards that I set, I would much rather look to be third this season. It will be ridiculous. To be third this season will be crazy. So I am happy. I'm happy to be third. I think if two players want to square up to each other over a bad tackle, why not? A fight would be entertaining than the football. So a little look. Have you seen Harry's reaction holding his head when no one touched him? That's embarrassing. I do agree with you. I saw another United channel comparing Haaland to Šeško. What's the point of that? Just unnecessary, just as Šeško is coming into good form. I mean, you can't compare Šeško to Haaland. You just can't. Šeško is not a Haaland. Haaland is different. Haaland is Haaland. Haaland is one of. I would argue this. I think Haaland is one of the best strikers in the last 10 years. Šeško doesn't have to be Haaland. I just think it's crazy. We should be beating Palace easily, and we didn't do that. Fresh evening, mate. Casemiro and Shaw, world class. I hope you're well. Fresh, legend. Top four is great, and result any higher. I agree with you. Big up, mate. Good to see you. Hop, now that you're better, mate. Look, Adam, mate. I feel better, and thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. A lot, my friend. Snip says, do you think Cunha foul was a red and a pen? Not really. Not really. I thought it was a bit harsh. If I was a Palace fan, I think I'd be pissed off. If it was the way that I think about it is this, right? Is if it was done to us, is there a possibility that it could be done to us? And my answer to that would be yes. Look, if we want, I don't like winning like that, but if it does mean that we win, you've just got to take it. Like, it leaves a bad taste in the mouth, but you've got to do it. Adam says it's been a shit season. There he is. STJ, yes. Yes. I hate when these names change. STJD, legend. I was wondering who you were. Legend. Did you watch the highlights to see the sports bra? I've been watching it longer, and the game is now like a poor shadow of what it was. VAR hasn't improved the game, but it's made it go backwards. No passion. Now having to wait for them to agree with you. Let's have a little look. We must get Shaw to the World Cup and represent. He's done so much for us. Look, I think that's an interesting opinion. I disagree with you. Luke Shaw should be nowhere near the World Cup. Luke Shaw, I respect Luke Shaw this season. Do I think Luke Shaw is good enough to play for England? No. Do I think Luke Shaw is good enough to play for us? No. What has he done for us? Look, I'm just interested in that statement. I'm not disrespecting your opinion, and if that's your view, 100% cool. I disagree with you. I don't think Luke Shaw should get anywhere near the England squad. He's not good enough for this squad. I think he's been a body this season. I don't think he's good enough to play for this club. And I respect him, but Luke Shaw should have been gone 3 years ago. And look, if that upsets you, I apologise, but disagree. Kevin says Liverpool and United will be in the Champions League. Kevin, I don't disagree with you, mate. I don't. Liverpool fans, I am going to say this to you guys. I fucking told you so. When Liverpool fans, and look, the reason why I say that is just because, look, of all the clubs in the Premier League, look, there is respect there. When Liverpool fans, Liverpool channels were moaning, bitching, whinging, season's over, sack slot, it's fucking awful. I told you that Liverpool were going to come good. Look, Liverpool, are they having the best season? No. Do I think Slot is the coach from heaven? No. But Liverpool were always too good to look when you accumulate those sorts of players, and it was always going to take time. Liverpool were buying players for the future. When you've got those players in your team, and Liverpool do need more players. But I told you Liverpool were going to come good because Liverpool are too good not to. Have they been the best? No. But they're better than Chelsea. They're better than a Brentford. And I would argue that Liverpool are probably in and around the same as us this season. I think they're very, very inconsistent. I think there are gaps in both teams, but I think we're very, very similar this season. And I think Liverpool and us are going to fight for third and fourth. Bruno, Cunha, Bruno, Luke Shaw, Cunha. Shaw's best days are behind him. It's great to be here in this chat, this community. I'm glad I randomly stumbled across the channel. Thank you, Sky. STJ says, okay, we got 3 points. Palace were robbed of a draw. Yes, they were. Sorry, JB, look, mate, don't need to apologise, buddy. I hope you are extremely well. I do hope all is okay, mate. United started off slow. We played away in half an hour. Hasn't Shaw played the most minutes either this season or since Christmas, I heard, which shocked me. Darren Anderton Mark II. I love it. Goldbridge, a good looking fella, ain't he? I love you so much. I think you're brilliant. I do. Look, I've got no opinion on his looks. I wouldn't go down that path anyway. You know, it's not. I love it. I truly do. There are certain comments that I love. I love Henderson's like opening line. Your quality. You are funny. Shaw will always be the man who could have been. He had the moments where he looked amazing, and I agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more. Luke Shaw could have been the most fantastic. Look, Luke Shaw at one point as a left-sided centre back was amazing. The only crime that Luke Shaw has is he got injured. Like that, you know, and you know, look, there are certain things that you could argue that Luke Shaw has done in terms of not playing for us and then going to a World Cup, or not playing for us trying to get to the Euros. That leaves a sour taste. Been injured for a long time. Look, he didn't ask for the contract. In my view, there are certain things that leave a sour taste in the mouth with Luke Shaw. But the only thing the only crime that he's had is he got injured early doors. Now, I remember that game. I watched the game. He was a young guy, and that leg break was awful. He came back. I thought he was a fantastic player, but those injuries have caught up with Luke Shaw and his age. You know, look, it happens to the best of us. It happens to the best of us. Age comes for us all. It does. Look, I'm slot out still, but I don't know who we get to replace him without knowing who we could bring. And I agree with you. I think you should stick with Slot until the end of the season, and then I think you go and get somebody else. But look, I think Liverpool sticking by their guns, Liverpool sticking by Slot, again, I just think shows the sort of club that Liverpool are. I just think it just goes to show that they are class. I think Liverpool are a very, very and look, rivals. I'm not saying that I like Liverpool, but you know, sadly, Liverpool seem to do things right. I'd rather see Dorgu running around like a headless chicken than Shaw playing. Shaw is better coming on when the match ends. Liverpool are better, which kills me, but they could go on to win the Champions League. So it'll look awesome to see you back on your game. Nobody. Bayern are looking the best team in Europe, and they'll look to make Champions League final. Shaw was a left back, not a centre back. He was never a big fan of Luke Shaw. Never a big fan. There was a time though when Luke Shaw did play left side centre back. Luke Shaw is a left back, but there was a time when he did play for a season as a left-sided centre back. The vision of Shaw clutching sports bras at Old Trafford is becoming embedded in my brain. Hilarious. Liverpool never make knee-jerk reactions. Exactly. So look, let's get on to the next part. So look, we've been to the debt. We've talking about the debt. I want to talk about how we sign players. So look, let's get on to how we sign players, where I think the danger is, and how we can sign players. So look, revenue basis. So look, what are we playing to? So there are two things that we need to consider when we're looking to buy players. So there is the salary squad cap. Now, what does this mean? It means that we've got to consider the wages, amortization, and agents' fees. Now now the wages do not include the playing staff. This should be a short segment. I'll sum it up. We'll sign nobody. I love it. But look, I want to give you the. I don't think anybody has given the full picture. I want to give you the full picture as to why I think that we can sign players. But the caveat to that is, how the fuck do we pay for it? So the first thing to bear in mind, and this is really, really important, is the salary squad cap. Now, this is the players' wages, the managers' wages as well, amortization. And I'll tell you what amortization is as well, because there's the amortization word gets bandied around a lot. And look, I know you guys know, in terms of, you've got the player amount, you've got the wages, and you amortize that over X amount of years. But I just want to tell you what that is. So look, there is two things to consider. There's that, but there's also the amount of salary cap. We have, if we cover the credit, 250 mil plus sales. I will come on to that as well, because we could have more or less. So if we are in Europe next season, we need to follow the UEFA 70% squad cap rule. Now, that is important when it comes to amortization. That's really important when it comes to the cost of the squad as well. So those are the two things. Now, amortization. Now, one of the things is, what is amortization? Now, amortization, as you know, is is where you take a player and you take the cost and you amortize that over X amount of years. I love the kit. Thank you. I do love the kit as well. Now, there are words that get bandied around a lot, like EBITDA, right? Earnings before tax, depreciation, amortization, right? Now, typically there are two things. Okay, there are depreciation and there is amortization. Now, the two things are basically the same thing. Depreciation is based on physical things, and amortization is based on something that is a non-physical thing. So, for example, if you've got something, you depreciate it because you're saying over time it's going to be worth less. So, for example, if you've got a car, if you say a car, the more you use the car, it's going to get worse over time. So you depreciate the car. You don't amortize the car because it is a physical thing. You can amortize non-physical things like a contract. Now, players are a physical thing. Okay, so you don't depreciate the players. The club do not own the players. The club acquire the registration of the player. So the reason why players are amortized and not depreciated is because they buy the registration. They buy the right to register the player. So that is why they are. That is where the amortization comes in to the piece. Now, I'll give you a little bit extra on this. Now, United have to follow something called the IFRS 38, which is the International Financial Reporting Standards of intangible an asset. And it's basically just the way that they have to treat the asset. So basically, when you hear amortization, it's basically the player's registration and not the player. So how the hell do we buy players this summer? Now, I've created a model that you can plug in the numbers and it will tell you how much you can basically spend. So there are two scenarios, and I'm going to base this scenario on Champions League, because I do think that we will get to the Champions League, and I'm going to base this on the Champions League. So, revenue. Now, I've seen revenue figures banded around like nobody's business. 850 million, 800 million pounds, right? Nonsense. I think the figure I've plugged in, on the basis that I think we need to be realistic. And look, if we get into the Champions League, you can count the Champions League cash, right? So you will probably get in and around 80 million. Okay, I don't know how far you get, but you can only class the revenue that you earn. So you're guaranteed 80 million pounds. Did the numbers we can sign players, the wages, that's gonna, and I promise you I'm going to get into that right this second. So the revenue figure that I've used, and look, you can use this and we can plug in some numbers. So I've used, I think, a fair figure. I think revenue next season, if we were in the Champions League, will be in and around 730 million. So I think that's a fair number. Now, the things that could impact the number is if obviously we do make a loss. There are certain factors that can come into that, but I'm just going to hedge my bets, make this really, really simple, and I'm going to say the revenue next season could be in and around 730 million. Now, you've got to, on that figure, you have to take into account the 70% squad cap rule. There's 85% in the Premier League, but you have to you've got to go down to the 70%. Now, this is where it gets interesting. This is where it gets really an interesting thing. So look, one of the major things we need to consider here are the wages of the players. Now, the current wage of the players is about 190 million. Now, one of the things that we need to consider here, are we going to lose the wages of Casemiro? We're going to lose the Rashford, the wages on that as well. We're going to lose Sancho as well. So those are bigger earners of the club. Now, we're going to lose in and around, I think Casemiro is on 300k a week. So we're going to lose, yes. So we're going to lose probably about 40 million pounds. So that does bring that figure in and around to about 150 million. The one thing we do have to factor, which will boost that wage back up before we've even bought players, is the 25%. So there's 25% extra we need to figure. So look, I've basically left that at 190 million, because with the bonuses, with the image rights, with the 25% increase in wage, I think it's still going to remain in and around that figure. So I've taken, imagine this: if those players were still here, and with the 25% increase on that wage, we would be talking a ridiculous sum of money. We would be talking probably over 250 million pounds without buying players. So I think the same wage, I think we're still going to carry the same. Bro, you've got... Thanks. So I think we're going to carry the same amount of wage. So look, 730 million, I think, is going to be in and around what we're going to earn. I think that our coach costs and our player costs are going to stay in and around the 190. Next thing to consider are going to be the agent fees. So I think, when we're looking at the agent fees, I think those are in and around 33 million pounds. So last year Thanks, mate. We absolutely. So we paid last season 33 million pounds on agent fees as well. So the next thing we need to consider is this. Look, what are we planning to spend? So look, what are we planning to spend? So this is my question to you guys, and I'll plug it in to here, and you can tell me. So the one thing I want to know is how much you think that we're going to spend, and how much extra wages do you think that we're gonna spend. So let's just say, for example, we need, I think we absolutely need. Hi friend, how can Galatasaray win this Liverpool match? I think you've just got to play, mate. I do. I think you've just got to play. Kieran says, I told you that United would overtake us. Going to be tough for us to stay in the top 5. Kieran, mate, is I know, my friend. I know. Anyway, lovely people, I'm off to work tomorrow. Look, Sky Legend, and I hope you are doing extremely well. How much is Mainly going to be if he signs a new contract? Exactly. I've not plugged in Bruno Fernandes. Apparently, he's going to sign a new contract as well. STJ says summer budget 150 million, wages will hit 250 a week. 150 million a week. So let's look at this from a logical perspective, right? Is that, let's just say, I think we need to spend at least 200, right? Now, this is what I mean about when people are talking about a Cole Palmer, right? The reason why I know it's a bunch of horseshit is because Cole Palmer is going to cost you, and I have done a back of a fag packet add up as well, is Cole Palmer is going to cost you at least 300k in a wage as well. He's going to cost you 150 million. Are we going, when we need, because is Benson and Hedges playing, we need to sign, I think, at least 4 players, and our budget is not going to be 300 million. So when people are talking about a Cole Palmer, when a Goldbridge is talking about a Cole Palmer, it's just for clicks. It's total bullshit. It is total absolute shite. How are we going to buy Cole Palmer and Anderson? We're going to need a left back. We're going to need some squad players. Also, the wages as well. The more, do you think they'll end up keeping Carrick? Yes, I do, Moss. I do. I think Carrick is going to be the guy. I do. I think Carrick is going to be the guy, and I think it is the budget. I do. I really, really do. So when it comes to the transfer window, look, I have put in 200 million, right? Amortize that over 5 years, because you've got to look at amortization, right? We can't buy those in garbage. Palmer ones out of Chelsea. And look, Moss, we could buy Cole Palmer. But the problem with that is they're going to want 100 million, 120 million for him, and he's going to want a massive wage. And this is what people need to understand for next season. The wage of the player is going to impact us. So I've put in there an increase from new signings of 40 million. Do you think offers will come in for Bruno? I do. I don't think Bruno's going to go. I don't. I think Bruno's going to get. I think Bruno Fernandes is going to stay. I do. I think they'll offer him. They'll offer him probably another 50k. I don't know. 50k. I do agree with you. I think he should have been sold, but I don't think he will. So I've put 200 million pounds as what I think. Oh my god, I'm so sorry, my idiot thumbs. It's all good, mate. So I've put 200 million in. I've put we're going to amortize that over 5 years, and I've put our wage bill at the lower end. I think we add another 40 million pounds. So I think we'll lose roughly 50 odd million pounds, and I think we'll add another 40 to that. Now, what does that mean? So that means, so at 730 million, the squad the squad cap of 70%, the estimated wage of 230, amortized over 5 years. What that means is that our baseline squad cost is 420 million. We would have amortized the 40 million. So our annual squad cost after the window, including everything, is 513 million pounds. Our squad cap will be 511, and which basically means that we could spend 190 million pounds. That is basically what we would have. That is what we could spend. The more you increase the wages, the worse it gets. So, you know, if we're planning a window of 200 million at 40 million pounds, and look, this is without player sales, by the way. This is without the players' sales. So factoring all of that under the squad cost, we can spend, on the basis that we spend 200 million, the wages, extra wages are no more than 40 million. We can spend, of the planned 200, we could spend 191 million. Now, we can't spend those, says Kieran. You've got at least 2 billionaire owners. Rodgers will be 80 to 100, I'd say, if he's going to ask for 250 weeks. Keeping Bruno is a bad idea. I think we can do better. People call him world class. It's a joke. Bruno is only good in one position. World class players can adapt and do a job in different positions. Ray, mate, if you've heard what I've been saying, look, I think that Bruno Fernandes for me is a wonderful, is a talented player, but to call him world class, I think is ridiculous. I think he does world class things, and again, I don't like that term. I think he does wonderful things, but Ray, only just on my dad. Look, Ray, I hope your dad's okay. I know, I know he wasn't well, and I do hope that your dad's okay, buddy. So Ray, look, I do hope that he's okay. Elliot is wasting there. He's a great player, but Villa don't have the money. So look, how do we spend more money? Now look, let us put a hypothetical situation, right? So let's just say our revenue next year is 850 million. So as people are suggesting, 850 million pounds. So if we were to earn that instantaneously, we would be able to spend £500 million. So if we were to earn 850 million pounds, as some people have said, and then they've said we can spend 340 million, well, they've not got their maths right, because you can spend £500 million. we're not earning £850 million next season. If we go back to 730, because I think that is roughly what it will be. If you then, for example, let's just say Rashford goes for 26 million, right? You add that into the fray. Who else could be? Højlund. Let's just say with Højlund we make 10 million on him, right? Let me just plug it into my say Rashford 26 million, Højlund is 10. We will get money in, we will get cash in as well. For Nicaragua is only going to be sub. Yeah, I would say if we get 26, I'll be surprised. So Barcelona don't even want to pay that. I think the deal with Barcelona is for 24 million. I think it is. So let's just say we also then get some income as well. So there is some deferred income as well. So let's call that another 15 million. So I don't know what I've done there. So if we could add those sales in there, it will give us another £51 million to spend. So look, if we were to add those in, it would give us around 230 million pounds to spend. But and this is a big but. So look, we can spend. And the reason why, the reason why I want to make this point of the fact that we can spend money, we can spend 200, we can. You could argue, you could spend more. People will argue that we can max out the credit card, right? So if you're talking about money that we can spend, you can max out the credit card, right? The fundamental problem tonight, the fundamental issue tonight is while debt is not the problem, debt will not stop you from signing the players, right? We could spend £500 million, right? You could spend 300 million pounds, right? That is what the model says tonight. That is what the budget says, as I've got. And I can make this all work. It doesn't matter what the model says. We don't have any fucking money. Like, we don't have the money without loading debt, without loading more debt onto the club. So my point here, and to people out there, to the channels that are talking about we can just go and spend £340 million, we can do this. I can get to those numbers. I can get to pretty much whatever number you want me to get to. All right? But fundamentally, we don't have the money. It doesn't matter. Our cash reserves, so what we hold in cash, has gone from 95 million to 40. So we don't have the cash to do it. As we've explained tonight, we've got 780 million pounds of debt that is due within 1 year. And we're going to load on some more debt to this. So the only way that we're going to buy players this season is to load more debt onto this club. The only way we can reduce the debt that is loaded onto this club is Champions League money, is to sell to buy. If we sell to buy, we can probably get to 200. But tonight, all this talk of we can go buy a Cole Palmer, and this is how you know. This is how you know that when people are talking about, a Cole Palmer, people are talking about an Anderson. It's just fucking pie in the sky. It's just not going to happen. And look, you know that this is real tonight, and I'll tell you why. You know that it's real because Chris Wheeler of the Daily Mail last week put it out there from the club that one of the worries for United is the wages. The story of the summer is going to be the wages. That is going to be the story of this summer, is going to be the wages. Kieran says, off to bed, hopefully to dream of Villa overtaking Arsenal and winning the league. I love your channel. Good content. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. So I'm going to tell you this now, so then we can look back on this. The rhetoric is going to be this summer the wages. That is going to be the issue. Any wages that we add on to this club, so even if, let's just say, we add on 60 million wages, right? Our net spend, what we can spend, goes down to 117 million pounds. I'm off to bed, JB. Been a great chat as always. Catch you again soon. Thank you. When we see the year-end figures, everyone is going to be horrified at what we are paying out on a week by week. And look, you know, it's true. You know, it is. And you know, look, we have gone through this tonight, and I will categorically tell you this. Tonight, the rhetoric of the summer is going to be the wages. We have to get this wage bill down. We've got to keep this wage bill down. Let's just say Casemiro is going to go. We're going to wipe off 58 million, right? That is what will happen. But we've got to buy players. We've got to buy players. And if you want to attract the best players, you've got to pay a fair wage. And this summer, you know, we're not going to go for the best players. It's because of the wages. And I'm telling you now, this summer, Bruno Fernandes, they will convince him to stay. Now, I'll tell you the reason why I think Bruno Fernandes will be convinced to stay and why they'll think that a 400k contract for the next 2 years is a good deal, because it's only going to be 100k more. That is how they're going to look at this. It's going to be cheaper to keep Maguire on a reduced wage. It's going to be cheaper to keep Bruno Fernandes on 400k because it's only 100k more a week, which sounds low, but when you're looking at, would you rather give Bruno Fernandes 100k or a week more, or would you rather go and get, you know, another player on, you know, or would you rather go and have to get two players, one to replace him on 300k a week and have to go get another player and say 200? So instead of paying 400, you pay 500. So, you know, I think that makes complete sense. Not for me, but for them. And this is why, based on this, you can predict what this club is going to do more. They're going to keep Harry Maguire. They'll offer him a new deal. I think Bruno Fernandes stays. I think they'll offer him between 50 and 100k more. And I think once that happens, I think you can forget massive players. Ridiculous. SCJ says that when you say 100k more, that's bonkers, that it's normal. And I agree with you. It is absolutely crazy that Bruno Fernandes will be on 400k a week, because it will be cheaper to do that than to go and buy 2 players. Because if you go get a Cole Palmer, he's going to want 300k a week. This wage bill has to come down. Whatever happens, this wage bill has to come down. Because if this wage bill goes up, if we reduce it by 58 and it goes up to 60, it is catastrophic. Also, as well, the most important part to all of this, we could spend £500 million. I can make this work. We don't have the money. And anybody telling you that we've got the money is talking out of their arse. Anybody that is telling you tonight that we can go and spend that money without financial implications shouldn't be talking about this stuff, because you cannot go and spend £340 million. Somebody has said, that we can use the credit card to max out the credit card. We're going to get funds here and there, and we cannot do it. It's not going to only be the transfer fees. It's going to be the wages. If you spend £340 million on 4 or 5 players, that wage bill is going to kill us. So that is why you absolutely cannot do it, for 2 reasons. One, we can't load another £340 million of debt. You can argue player sales, even if you add the Champions League money to this amount, it is not going to do what people think it's going to do. So look, that's sort of the financial stuff tonight. My name says, I saw the news report today that United are keen to sign Hackney from Borough, and look, I think that is what they're going to do. I think they're going to look for bargains. This is going to be a bargain summer. This is going to be, I think, one marquee signing. I do, because I think there is the budget there for a marquee signing. But it's not going to be this summer of 2 or 3 world-class players. It's not going to be. It's not going to be an Anderson and a Stiller, and it's going to be, and Anderson's not coming, by the way. It's going to be a marquee player, and then it's going to be supplemented with other players. I still think Luke Shaw is going to be here next season. I think Harry Maguire is still going to be here next season. I don't think we're going to touch the back 4. I don't. I think we've got to touch the midfield. I think we might get a winger. I think we might even go get a striker. But don't expect 5 or 6 players, because 1, we can't afford it. 2, that wage bill has to come down. The wage bill has to come down, and we've just not got the budget for it this season. So look, I've been through the figures. This is what I did for a living for a very, very long time. So look, the maths make sense to me. I can make £500 million. I can make a case for that. I can make a case for 100 million. But I think when you look at what's coming out of the club at the moment, when you look at what they're trying to do, and we are talking about reducing the wage bill. I mean, for fuck's sake, Sir Jim is getting rid of the tea ladies. Like Sir Jim is reducing the benefits of the staff. Why is he reducing all of this? Don't forget, the last thing I wanted to say as well is, don't forget we've just made a £2.5 million loss. People have been reporting we made a profit of £33 million. No, we didn't. Operationally, we made that money, but that isn't the figure. The figure is the net profit. And the net profit, you've got to take on board amortization, because amortization is huge. You've got to take on board depreciation, tax, and after other commitments have come out of that, we made a £2.5 million loss. So we're still not turning that corner. Sir Jim, for all of the people that he sacked, don't forget that doesn't include the Amorim cost. That's another 20. There's got to come out up to 26. United didn't report. They didn't report in their figures. They didn't report the Amorim amount of money yet. And the reason why they haven't is because that would have put us into a £30 million loss. So next quarter, that is probably when they will report it, or they'll put it onto the balance sheet so it doesn't have to hit the profit lines. So there is so much spin. The rhetoric in this club right now is that we are doing well. We're not doing well. We're not. We're saddled with debt. The debt is catastrophic, and we're still not making the money that we need to be able to get rid of this debt. It frees us up to buy players. So look, tonight is look. I know tonight maybe will piss on people's parade. You know, I know people watch other channels. You know, I know people just like the headline. You know, we can buy players, we can buy whoever we like. But we don't do that here. I give you the truth. I give you the truth based on reality, based on the figures. And that's that. Is Shesko your new Norman Whiteside? Makes sense why we are letting Casco. The boys still have another. If you left them sell, hit a solid core players, and then we have a team. Isn't it also dependent on the gate receipts, which Sir Jim kind of has turned away a lot of attending now? Look, revenue is obviously huge, but as you say, we just don't have the money or the nous. But look, revenue is one of those things where, look, revenue is important, right? It is huge, right? But the one thing we've got to consider is it's not just about the money in, it is the money out. And it is that debt. If you make £1 billion, right? If you make £1 billion, but your costs are 999, it doesn't matter the receipts. And if you're saddled up with debt, you can't do anything. So we are coming to a point where Sir Jim has to cost cut again. Sir Jim Radcliffe and this club is going to have to cut costs again. They are going to have to cut the wage bill again. How they manage to do that is going to be an interesting thing. I will be very, very surprised this summer if we don't bring that wage bill down to 160, 170 million. But what that does mean is that we're not going to sign the players. We're just not going to sign the players. The first sensible man I've heard today. Look, mate, look, we on this channel, my friend, we don't do bullshit. I will tell you the truth. I will be very clear and I will be concise and I will explain it. We just don't do bullshit on him, mate. Never rated Bruno such an arrogant twat, says Luke. No frills, quick save buys. We had one of your younger players, Jack Morehouse, on loan at Orient. Rumour has it his wages 10k a week. How does it? I mean, that is ridiculous. You know, it's crazy. It is crazy. It's just ridiculous. It's time for Shea Lacey to shine. I do agree. I bet you're over the moon at the prospect of seeing Luke Shaw playing for another season. Oh fucking hell! I know. Don't depress me even more. We may get a left back CDM, but that's our lot given the numbers. Your squad isn't deep enough for more than one game a week. You need numbers to pad out your squad. I do agree with you completely. Do you think Carrick should get the gig? What I'm going to say is this. Michael Carrick, look, I think he will get the job. I do think he will do. But it's not going to be based on best in class. It's not. It just isn't. I think from a tactical perspective, I don't think he's very good. And I think the reason why he will get the job is because there's nobody else that's going to work with this football structure. Wilcox, who's going to want to work with Wilcox? Can you imagine a world where Nagelsmann? Can you imagine a world where Nagelsmann comes into this club and is being told by a Wilcox what to do? Nobody wants to work with this group of players. Nobody wants to work with a Wilcox. We can't fool people. People know about the finances. One of the things now is that people are not fooled. People can read the finances. I think there are more and more fans now that are more interested in the financial side. And look, it is preposterous to me. We're fans. Like, I'm a fan. The only reason why I'm interested in the accounts is because that is what I did for a very, very long time. And I'm a massive geek and I enjoy that sort of stuff. But it's not up to fans to get involved in the financial stuff. It's not up to fans to, our job is to go to the fucking games or watch the games and just like watching football. That is our job. But the problem that this club has got now is that there are more and more people who are interested in the backside of this club, and literally the backside of this club is full of shit. Jim wants the tea for himself. My theory is it makes sense why he got rid of them. Ray, look, mate, thank you, buddy, for the super chat. Ray, mate, look, I'll always say this. It always humbles me when people are willing to support the channel. Ray, what can I say, buddy? Absolute legend, and I really, really do appreciate it. And it is nice to be back. It's a 2.5 million loss. Exactly, the loss is probably from all the wages. Are United still big in Southeast Asia? Yes, we're huge. Amarin payoff is 10 mil move to Q3. Apparently, the whole payoff for Amarin is 26 million. I don't know how true that is, but apparently it's around 26 million. It'll be interesting. What about the MD you got from Newcastle for a week? Oh my god. Oh, Ashworth, ridiculous. Ashworth, absolutely. Q3 is going to be a clusterfuck. Exactly. Sir Jim has got no one else to sack. Literally, Sir Jim has got nobody else to sack. He can't sack. Who's he going to sack next? Like, he literally can't sack anybody. After his remarks, do you think Sir Jim was once... That's made me laugh. Sir Jim has just turned himself into a joke. Look, they have tried to wipe that underneath the carpet. They've tried to sweep it underneath the carpet. You know, Sir Jim, basically a financial duck, karma on the top, but pending. Exactly that. Everything, but even then, right? Even then, right? Um, this is how stupid the club thinks people are, right? All I've seen them do, and all I've seen channels do that don't understand the numbers, because there's not many out there that understand the numbers. What they do is they go to ChatGPT, they type some shit in, or they go to an X channel, and they go and pinch the numbers, and they'll read out the numbers without understanding the context, right? This club thinks you and I are so stupid. The one thing they've been banging on about is this operational profit of £33 million. It doesn't mean shit. It doesn't mean shit. Nobody, I've hardly seen anybody talking about the £2.5 million loss. That is the number for Q2. That is the number for Q2. It's not 33 million. It's 2.5 million loss. When you factor in Amorim, it's probably in Q3 we're probably going to be looking at a 30 million loss, 25 million pound loss, because the revenue is going to be straight line. We're not going to be able to bring in money because we don't have it there. We're going to make another loss. Headlines make fans happy. The numbers. I would always say this, SDJ. Always say this. Numbers don't lie. People do. Numbers do. Numbers never lie. People lie. People lie. But for not spending money and pulling results with the squad we have the club, we see this as a perfect solution, seeing as they had to pay Amorim. What's the approximate monthly wage at United inclusive of staff? Well, it's £190 million per year. So whatever that is, bloody hell. What are we talking? 13, 15 million, 16 million pounds a month, probably divide that by 4. Probably what, 6, 12, 18. I reckon you're probably talking the best part of £4.5 million a week, £5 million a week. Ridiculous. Gobich says you've got all your figures wrong. Well, I've not. So I've not. So look, 7 games, 6 wins. United back? Nope. Absolutely not. Away through this time, says Sky. Agree with you. Carrick is the yes man. That's the problem. Hopefully it works. And Joe, look, mate. There is. Look, the thing is, right, Joe. This is, I guess, not my issue, but this is my comment on it, right? Is that Michael Carrick, if I thought for a second Michael Carrick could be the next Alex Ferguson, like, I want Carrick to succeed. Like, there's this weird thing in this fan base that if you criticize or if you critique somebody, you're a hater. You can't stand them. You are, or the isms, right? I want Carrick to succeed. Like, at the moment, I don't think from a tactical perspective, I don't think he's got any. I like some of the things that he does, but it doesn't mean I don't want him. But it doesn't mean that I want him either. Like, all I want to do, Joe, is basically wait until the end of the season and see where we are. Because ultimately, he's had 7 games. He's done a good job. He's done a great job. And if we decide to appoint Carrick, I hope the same people, just as I will, if Carrick gets the job and he wins a title, I will hold my hands up and I'll say, did I get it wrong? Possibly. But we're not going to know how good he is, at least for another year or two. Because just because he's won some games now, you don't know if he's going to be good next year. You don't know if Carrick can handle a better squad. You don't know if Carrick is going to be able to gel a squad together. Let's just say we get another 6 players. Is Carrick going to be able to manage those players? We don't know. We don't know. Joe says, get another decent window. I don't know, my friend. We love seeing United play. The numbers tell us what we can do. The reports tell us what we can't. It's always about the money. Hey, if the shit hits the fan, it's not bad in the nation Orient where there are 2 seasons. Fans swap ends at half time. You can drink a beer. I've played at Orient. I did a charity match there, and I scored an absolute cracker. Orient, brilliant. Danny is in the house. He's their man. They got it wrong with Amarin, and look, I'm not gonna. The Amarin debate, I think, will rage on. Do I think they got it wrong? I think they got it wrong. I think there's a number of reasons as to why they got it wrong, but I think it's a debate, Joe, that I think at the end of the season, I think is definitely one to have. But I'm starting to lean towards that. Q3 report is going to look like a £35 million loss. JB, do you think 2028 will win the league? No. Nope. How much difference is it between finishing 3rd, 4th, and 5th? I think it's like 5 million a position. I think. Roughly £15 million a month. I love our club, but 2030 tilt is more. Yeah, I do agree with you. Is 190 just players' wages, or is it the combined wages? Nope. The combined wages is 300. Yeah, the combined wages of running the club is 300. Yeah, the combined wage is 300. Alex says, if you could buy any player in the world for United, who would you choose? That's a fucking good question, mate. Jesus, who would I buy? That's a good question, mate. That's a bloody good question, Alex. That is a very, 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 very good question. I think Valverde. I think for me would be the one that I'd go and get. I think he's got all of that. I just think he's a class act. I do. I also like Kvaratskhelia as well, but I think Valverde, for me, would probably be the one that I'd go get, or somebody like a Gavi as well. Why is the football so slow first half, mate? I don't know, buddy. I really don't know. I think it's awful. I don't know. I do like Vinicius as well. We all want Carrick to succeed. We don't trust him to continue. in fairness, the players seem to enjoy playing for Carrick, which is always and it is. Look, the one thing that Carrick does extremely well is he gets his players to play. You know, I admire that. I do. Happy seeing United actually win, but the games aren't exactly smooth sailing. Do you think Carrick might be getting some advice from Sir Alex? No. I don't really. I think he probably talks to him, but you know, look, Fergie. I know people think Ferguson has this iron glove, like this iron fist. Fergie's not. Fergie's not involved. He's not. He's not. Martin Glover says rag, right, mate. Amrin was too stubborn. I was here saying that Carrick was the man after the Arsenal game. How's life been for Hammer? Is it hammering in us, still punching the air? Look, there is no problem. You know, I'm not going to talk about Amarin now because I think that's more of a conversation for the end of the season. Carrick is doing a good job. Carrick is not the man at the moment for me, but Carrick is growing into the role. And I think we need to take this game after game. And if Carrick gets us top 3, then we've got to consider Carrick. I'm not saying that Carrick isn't the right man. I'm just not convinced right now. Rodrigo Tonali, holy crap. It is a lot of wages. I was about to type the same. It's an eye-watering figure. Fergie don't care. A good claret holds more interest than it is. I'm off to work tomorrow. Good night. So look, guys, I am going to go. Fantastic show. Look, I'm glad to be back. I love these shows. These are my favourite shows to do. The evening show. Ferguson arrived from Aberdeen. He certainly did. Absolute legend of a coach. But look, guys, legends. Look, I never get tired of saying this. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the support. These late shows are my favorite shows. Corrupt Football says we're actually going to act like Amarin inners and Amarin outers will never get on. No chance. Carrick winning will always push slander back at the inners. Look, mate. If people are so petty, whereby they can't stand people's opinions, that says more about the person. It does. Brilliant, JB. Thank you for the info and last. Look, mate, as always, STJ legend. Moss says, JB, look, I'd love to. I would love to. But look, Moss, STJ, Nikarutsu, everybody in the chat, legend. So look, guys, I will be back tomorrow. I think I'll be back tomorrow at some point, depending on work, obviously. But look, guys, thank you for being here. Absolute legends. Can't thank you guys enough for the support. And look, have a fantastic rest of your evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. I'm JB. This is the United Devil channel and legends. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care.